Okay, good morning, year 7, and here we are for our last lesson together, okay, before you break for the summer. I'm genuinely really sad not to say goodbye to you in person. I have loved working with you all. You have been brilliant, and I've been so impressed with what you've achieved this year. So, if I was there with you, you know I would be smiling and encouraging you just to give it your best for our last lesson together. Okay, guys, so we're going to go straight into our daily review. Hopefully by now, lovely Essie or somebody equally keen like me has given out the books, and we are ready to do our starting task. So, daily review. It says for number 1 and 2, you need to complete the sentences using appositives. And for 3 and 4, you've got to correct the sentences using commas. So, Caliban, a blank, is part of the comic subplot. Stefano, a blank, is mistaken for a god. So for those two, you've got to put in an appositive to complete those ideas. For 3 and 4, you're correcting the sentences by using commas. So by the end of the comic scene, Caliban has given power to Stefano. So how would you correct those sentences using commas and other punctuation? And for number 4, comic relief is created by using stage direction, slapstick puns, and low status characters. So again, how would you use commas to bring control into that sentence? So lovely people, I'll allow the teacher just to press pause. I would say it's just our starters, so we don't want to be here too long. So maybe give yourself 4 minutes and then we'll look at the answers together. Off you go. Okay, guys, so hopefully the teacher's given you enough time. Let's look at our answers. Now, guys, we know with the positives there is room for choice, okay, and variety. The rule for the appositive, though, is that it has to start with an a or a than or an an. And if we got rid of Caliban, the sentence should still make sense, okay? So we don't want here a who, a which, a that, because that won't make sense and is a positive. Okay, so Caliban, a son of a witch, is part of the comic subplot. Caliban, a monster. Caliban, a victim. Caliban, a creature of the island. So as long as it begins with an a or the, and it tells us something about Caliban, it's the appositive. So in my example, Caliban, a son of a witch, is part of the comic subplot. Stefano, a drunken servant, is mistaken for a god. Stefano, a drunk man. Stefano, a butler. Stefano, a survivor of the storm. So again, we're using appositives in an academic way to show our knowledge and understanding of the characters. Brilliant. So the rule is you can only mark it as right as if your appositive begins with an a or a the, okay, to make sure. The other way to make sure it's the correct appositive is if you took off Caliban, the sentence should still work. A son of a witch is part of the comic subplot. A drunken servant is mistaken for a god. In both of those, the appositive still works as the subject and the sentence makes sense. Okay, guys, let's look at number 3. By the end of the comic scene, comma, Caliban is given power to Stefano. So here we've got that moment where the comma is separating the part that tells us when. So we use a comma to separate the part that tells us when it comes at the beginning of the sentence. Brilliant. By the end of the comic scene, Caliban is given power to Stefano. Now, in number 4, we haven't looked at it for a while, but we're using commas here to separate items in a list. Brilliant. So comic relief is created using stage directions, comma, slapstick, comma, puns, and low status characters. Brilliant. So if you got those right, give yourself a mark out of 4. If you didn't, just have a quick word to yourself. What mistake did you make, and can you understand why it was a mistake? Now, guys, for our last lesson, we are going in a completely creative direction, okay? We're going to just use language today to describe a shipwreck, okay? Now, rather than write the question as your title, you can just call it Describing a Shipwreck or Creative Writing. And our date today is the 21st of July. And how lovely that we've got the sun shining on the day that we're going to write about a terrible stormy shipwreck. But that's irony for you. Okay, so hopefully as well, the teacher will just pause in a minute. They might have already given out our first tour. Because we're going to make a plan. We're going to come up with some ideas. I'm going to guide you through some activities around this image, which should be given to you on a sheet. Now, this is a beautiful image of a shipwreck. And you can see we're going to be thinking before we write about our vocabulary, our senses. We're going to zoom in on details and we're going to create some figurative language. Now, I'm not just going to let you write completely freely. I'm going to guide you through some ideas, and then you will write creatively to end, to give me a brilliant description of this shipwreck. Isn't it a wonderful picture? Okay, so first of all then, we're going to turn and talk. So it says here you're going to have some time. I'm going to give you about 2 minutes, okay, to talk to the person next to you and to try and think of some ambitious words to describe the image. Now, for this activity, we want to think that ambitious words are not words we would use in everyday speech. So we wouldn't look at this picture and maybe say, oh, the waves are big. Could we think of an ambitious word, something that's more descriptive, more ambitious than big? So immense, towering, overwhelming. Now, we can also, it says, record those words in the top left-hand corner of the sheet where it says vocab. But you can also use your books. I know some of you now are in new books, not old books. But can you think of any vocabulary we've learnt across the year that we could use as well, that we could borrow? So we might talk about malevolent. We might talk about fiendish. We might talk about some of the vocab we've used to describe this image. So, guys, I'm going to ask teacher, the lovely person in the room with you now, to pause and to give you about 2 minutes to come up with 5 ambitious words to describe the image. And your 2 minutes starts now. Okay, lovely people. So you've had time to turn and talk in pairs or maybe threes. Now we're going to magpie. Now magpie means we have permission to steal some words and phrases for our vocab bank from this sheet. Now this is a sheet of words and phrases, really ambitious ideas to describe a storm. Now I was thinking about this sheet and it might look a little bit small to you at the board. So what I'm going to do is just read through some. Okay, I'm going to read through some of these words or phrases. You can be using your own magpie eyes. You might see a phrase that you really like. And then I'm going to give you a minute, 2 minutes. If we've got a lovely teacher who understands how the magnifier on the control works, maybe to make the screen a little bit bigger, just to kind of give you different areas to look at. So I'm going to read some of these words or phrases, and you could be hearing and listening out for ones you're going to steal. So these are some beautiful vocabulary that we could add to that part of our vocab book for describing a storm. Now look at this one, huge guillotine blade of lightning. That's a brilliant image. Eerie light, a clap of thunder, like an exploding firework, like the echo of a drum, thunderous echo, high branches, a sharp crack, a sickening creak, ear-splitting crash, a sudden screech of anger, a trickle of water, showers of heavy rain, a maelstrom of cloud and rain, menacing whirl of grey and white, grey, ominous and threatening. It deepened its roar as it pounded against the doors. It rattled the bare branches of the trees. It grated together like broken teeth. It banged wildly in the sudden gust of wind. It was torn apart by the jagged spears of lightning, burst across the crest of the oncoming storm, lit up the whole scene and split the sky. It cut through the darkness like camera flashes. It flooded the land. It lit up the sky. It illuminated the sky with a stark blue whiteness. It seared his vision. It blinded him. The clouds parted, a hole opened in the clouds, crashed together, boiling and shrieking. It broke against the sides of the boat. It rocked and pitched in the heavy swells. It thundered towards them across the sea. Guys, so this is a beautiful word bank that somebody else has put together. Okay, now I'm going to encourage teacher, the lovely person in the room, just to press pause. You heard me reading some of them. I'm going to ask, though, that you just choose 3 to 5 words and phrases that you're going to commit to using in your writing today. Okay, so in 3, 2, 1, press pause and choose your 3 words or phrases. Okay, so we've thought about our picture now in terms of some vocabulary. And now we're going to think about it in terms of that box that says senses. And I'm going to give you some time in a minute to use your 5 senses to create 3 noun phrases that could go with this image. So just a reminder that our senses are what we can see, what can we hear, taste and touch and smell. So really when you answer the question, what can I see, what can I hear, taste, touch and smell, Your answer is going to give you a noun. It's going to tell you the thing that you see, a boat, clouds, something that you hear, bird cries, something you taste, salt, something that you touch, sand, something that you smell, the sea. So in answer to these questions, your sense questions, what can you see, hear, taste, touch, and smell? It's always going to be a noun. But we want to write noun phrases. Now, there's two ways to create noun phrases, and I'm going to model them to get you going. So you can think of the noun, what do you see? And then you can think of two adjectives to go with it. So I see something, what two adjectives can I put with it? So I can see the waves, and they're monstrous and menacing. So I've now created a noun phrase because I've gone waves, monstrous, and menacing. So if I said to you, tell me one thing you hear, come up with the noun, the thing, and then give me two adjectives to describe it. So what can you hear? Bird cries, and they are loud and distressing. Okay, now the other way though to create a noun phrase is to go for the noun, verb, and adverb option. So I still start same place. What waves? What can I see? The waves. But instead of asking myself what they like, which gives me adjectives, I'm going to say, well, what are the waves doing and how are they doing it? So a verb tells me what the thing is doing, and the adverb tells me how it's being done. So the waves surged menacingly. Noun, adjective, adjective. Waves were monstrous and menacing. So, guys, you're going to have 3 minutes to try and create 3 noun phrases. Now, you're recording these onto your sheet. It says up in the corner, can you see it? The senses. So you might think, well, there's more than 3, but this is just a plan. And your 3 minutes to create 3 noun phrases by talking and coming up with ideas together begins now. Okay, guys, so we've got our senses plan. So we're just going to pause here and just show some sentence tricks, how we can begin to use the ideas from our vocab bank, from our sentence bank, to do some nice sentence trickery. Now, what this means is to use some clever sentence structures really quickly to elevate our writing. So we've got 5 types of sentences here that are pretty fancy, that are pretty impressive. We've got what we call the not only but also sentence. We've got the double adjective, we've got the ly opening, we've got the triple verb, we've got the so-and-so. Now, 2 of these we're already definitely able to do because we've just planned our noun phrases. So in a minute, the double adjective and the ly opening we'll be able to do using our senses choices, okay, of our phrases. So what was I focused on? I was focused on the waves. So I could say not only, I thought that was going to let me type a little bit nicer than that. That's a little bit embarrassing. Okay, because I was going to write not only were the waves la 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 la. Okay, guys, so I might abandon this. I thought this, oh no, I'm getting it now. So not only were the waves, now can you remember my 2 M words that I planned? So not only were the waves monstrous, but also menacing. Now, this is where you think, technology, you are not my friend right now. It's not going to let me do it, is it? I'm going to abandon using the pen. I'm just going to erase the drawing. I'm just going to talk to you. So not only were the waves monstrous, but also menacing. Okay, so look at my double adjective, monstrous and menacing. The waves surged at the boat. Now, when we talked about the ly, I said the waves surged menacingly. So I'm ready to go. Menacingly, the waves surged at the boat. Now, this one, though, we're going to have to come up with on the spot. I need triple verbs. So I've already said that the waves surge at the boat. But is there anything else the waves could do? They could surge, brilliant, crash, flood, consume, rise, fall. So my triple verb sentence could be surging, crashing, and consuming. The monstrous waves attacked the boat. Ooh. So I'm beginning that sentence with a triple verb. Now, the so-and-so. The waves, now, the wave was so monstrous and so menacing that the boat was terrified. The waves were so monstrous and so menacing that the boat seemed insignificant in their wake. So guys, this is a challenge moment. So I've talked you through and badly tried to illustrate using the writing method. So I'll stop that. Now I want you to do 3. So you don't have to write all of them unless you're a really quick writer. So you could choose to do a double adjective sentence and not only but also an ly opening. You could choose to do a so-and-so double adjective and not only but also. Now guys, you're using your vocab in your vocab box and the ideas that you've just planned, and you're just going to quickly create 3 really nice creative sentences just using these different devices. And your time is going to start now. Okay guys, so hopefully that would have given you about 3 or 4 minutes just to come up with 3 really nice sentence tricks, so turning your vocabulary into some lovely sentences. So what are we going to think about next? Okay, I'm just going to pause and see what I've done to my board. Yay, I fixed the technology. Okay, we'll pretend that never happened. I could have erased it, but I don't know how to do that. So we've got some examples of sentences. So what do we build into our writing next? Right, we're now going to go where it says figurative language. Do you see that on your table? You've got your lovely boat down at the corner. We've got figurative language. We're going to go for a military metaphor. Now, this is really cool. A military metaphor is an effective way to describe stormy weather and a stormy sea by using military language. Now, we already know that a metaphor form involves describing things as they are not. It's got the tenor in the vehicle and the common ground. So actually, military words can have common ground with a storm because military vocabulary is often about attacking and defending. It's about one thing fighting with another. And so we can describe the storm and the waves as attacking and being at war with this boat. So military vocab is going to work really well here. Now, it says, how many military words can you think of? So in a minute, I'm going to give you time to sit, turn and talk, and to come up with as many military words as you can think of. Now, to help you, if you think, I don't know any military words, let's think about it this way. Well, what do we call people who serve in the military? So what do we call people that are in the army, the navy, the RAF? What do we call a military force equipped for fighting? Now, you might have done some World War I or II work in history this year. You might have some vocabulary from history that you can borrow. What do we call a single line of soldiers? What do we call a large body of troops ready for battle? What verb do we particularly associate with soldiers when they're walking? So all of these prompt ideas means you are going to have 2 minutes to quickly come up with as many military words as you can think of. And if you've got a lovely teacher in the room that could help if you get a bit stuck, they're on hand to do so. So 2 words, how many military words can you think of in 2 minutes? So guys, I did mine. Here's one I prepared earlier. So military words I could think of: assault, attack, having a strategy, being in the trenches, being bombarded, having an arsenal of weaponry, being armed, being ready to invade, following a command. And here were some of the support prompt answers. So what do we call people serving in the military? We've got soldiers, brilliant. What do we call a military force equipped for fighting? That's a battalion. What do we call a single line of soldiers? A squad. And a large body of troops, we call them the platoon. And what words do we particularly associate with soldiers walking, marching? So we're going to use this vocabulary to create a military metaphor. Now, if we look at this sentence, lines of clouds moved across the sky. How can we add military language to this description? So let's think, if we're going to create a metaphor, we need to replace some of these words with some military words. So lines of clouds moved across the sky. So guys, what could we replace moved with? What word did we say is used for soldiers that are on the move? Brilliant. So we could say lines of clouds marched across the sky. But there's another word we could think about as well. What about lines? So what military words did we come up with for lines? A platoon, a battalion. Brilliant. So we could recreate this line, lines of clouds moved across the sky, to use military metaphor. So we could say a battalion of clouds marched across the sky. So this is giving us, in our part of the picture where we're planning, our figurative language. We're going to create military metaphors today. Now, to help us think even more about the military metaphor, it's setting up attention. So this image is suggesting that there's a battle between nature, so the weather and the sea, and the ship. So we've got to have an imaginative moment, guys. So where it says the figurative language part of your box, let's just get some ideas down really quickly that's going to help us. Because we're going to say that this storm is a metaphor for something. It's a metaphor for a bigger struggle. So what could nature and the ship be fighting for? Why could the sea and the weather be attacking the ship? Now, guys, when we talk about creativity, this is where your imagination is brilliant. So you maybe will imagine lots of different reasons, but I'll give you a clue. What is the theme of the Tempest? Where do we start? Before we got to this comic subplot, what was it all about? What was that P word? Power. So maybe the ship is fighting to overpower the storm, and the storm is fighting to overpower the ship. So what is the fight, the struggle for? It might be for power. What else could it be? It could be for survival. The ship is fighting to survive the storm. The sea and the weather could be angry. Do you remember Neptune? Yep, that the sea can sometimes attack humans if we think that humans misuse the sea. So we could say that this is a struggle against the misuse of the sea by humans. Oh, maybe the sea's fighting back for years of being plundered. Now, how is the ship going to respond to the attack, do you think? Now, this has to come from the picture. Do you think the ship looks like it can actually do anything? Can the ship outrun the storm? Can the ship hide from the storm? So you're going to have to think creatively in a minute. How is the ship going to respond to the attack? Is it going to wait it out? Is it going to fight back? Is it going to defend itself? How's this ship going to respond to the attack? And why is nature attacking the ship? So guys, this is your last moment to plan. This is close to our last minute to plan it, and then we're going to turn all these lovely ideas into some writing, okay? So just pause here. Quickly answer these questions. What is the fight, the struggle for? How is the ship going to respond to the attack? And why is nature attacking the ship? So in 3, 2, 1, pause and get your ideas down. Okay, so this could be a struggle for power for my story. Okay, this ship has come to a place it shouldn't be, and then nature's going to fight back, and they're fighting for power. Who gets to stay? Who gets to survive? The ship is going to respond by just having to wait it out. It's going to try and be resilient. It's going to try and outwait the storm. It's going to try and out-survive it, but it can't really do anything to fight back. It can't be offensive. It's going to have to defend itself, literally batten down the hatches and hope to survive. Nature's attacking the ship because it's angry, maybe. It sees the ship as invading its territory. So these are ideas that I've got down. Now, we're going to write a sentence. Now, we're going to go for slow writing. Okay, now this first piece of your writing, we've got loads of ideas on the sheet, okay, is going to get us started. And then I'm going to give you free rein to turn your ideas into a description of this storm and the sea and the boat, okay, all the beautiful things we've been thinking about. So, as I say in a minute, I want you to begin your sentence with a part that tells the reader when or where this is happening. So it could be something like, under a dark, ominous sky, a ship entered an epic battle against nature, which would be quite dramatic. But I would like you also to write within your sentence in a positive. Under an angry, ominous sky, the ship, a man's last defense against the sea, prepared to defend itself against the onslaught. Now, we've got to contain a military metaphor. So we could talk about onslaught, I said that, or attack, defense. So we could talk about a military metaphor. We must use something other than just what we see. So I'd love you to start to write them in your description about senses other than sight, maybe what we can hear. I'd love to challenge you to use a semicolon. Now, guys, it does say here that the second person is banned. We don't want any you could hears. Okay? We want you to describe and help us imagine what's happening in this picture without using any you could hears. Now, for this is the last bit. Now, I'm going to do this, because I want to write whilst you are writing. And this is the only way I can do it because we've discovered that that writing tool is not my friend. So, guys, if you're happy with what you're doing, ignore what I'm doing on the board. You can just start to do your creative description. Okay, that first beginning part. If you're a bit stuck, you can work with me. Okay, so here we go. We need a part that tells when or where. So I'm going to start with under. Now, under. Ooh, I'm going to use the earlier metaphor so I can hit the military metaphor at the same time. So can you see I'm allowing myself to edit? So under a battalion of ominous angry clouds, the ship, a last defense against the sea. Prepared for battle. Now, remember, this doesn't all have to be in one sentence, but I'm just following this. So, under a battalion of ominous, angry clouds. So I've started by telling where my ship is. I'm under a battalion of angry clouds. I've got the appositive, the ship, a last defense against the sea, prepared for battle. And I've got my military metaphor. Now, because I'm going to take my next sentence, I'm going to hit that next bit. I want to use a sense other than sight. So I want to think maybe about what I can hear. That's a nice one. So I'm going to think about what I can hear and maybe now try to use a semicolon. Now remember, semicolons, either side of the semicolon has to be two independent clauses, but they're linked in some way. So I could use a not only, but also. Not only were the sounds, so I'm thinking about the sounds, so not only, so not only were the clouds an angry, hostile grey. So that's what they look like, but now I'm going to give them a sound, okay? So guys, what sound comes out of the clouds? Yeah, I'm going to start to use some vocabulary around maybe rumbling or thunder. Not only were the clouds an angry, hostile grey, they were also beginning to rumble. Now, I can't actually use the semicolon there because if I take the semicolon out, not only were the clouds an angry, hostile grey, that not only means it doesn't make sense. So I can't use that. It has to be a comma. So not only were the clouds an angry, hostile grey, but they were also beginning to rumble. Now, I need to use that semicolon, okay? So I'm looking at my list, but I'm beginning to write and to create. Now, guys, you are going to be set loose now to do me a personal description of that picture. So you can zoom in on details. You could think about the red flag. You can think about all the things you've planned. But you are just going to write now a description of that beautiful image in your best possible creative ways. It has been a pleasure working with you, and I really will miss you and wish you a wonderful summer. Okay? Off you go and enjoy the creative writing.